Hi and welcome to another video update from the Fire Brigades Union. We're here at the Union's head office in London and we're joined by General Secretary Matt Wrack to talk about pay. Matt, pay awards just come out of 1%. This is the 7th consecutive year where firefighters' pay, along with everyone else in the public sector, has either been capped or had a zero pay rise. How do you think this is actually affecting our members now?
Well, Tom, I think it is a really terrible situation we're in. We're living through the worst period of austerity since the Second World War. So the turning point there is first of all the financial crash of 2007 and 2008, then the general election of 2010, and the government ever since then has had this very hard line on public sector pay, and of course we're caught up in that. And the impact is, I think people are struggling, firefighters and their families are struggling to pay the bills, to plan for the future, and increasingly just deal with the basics. So we're getting a lot of anger about that. That's reflected at conference. People are reporting some of those hardships that people are feeling, and we clearly need to start addressing that both in terms of the fire service, but also as part of the public sector more widely.
Now you say that, and the situation is clearly getting untenable for our members. What's the union's plan for pay going forward?
Well, I think there's two sides to this. First of all, we're part of a wider movement, the trade union movement, and there are millions of people affected by exactly the same attacks on pay as our members. And that's reflected just this week. A report has come out saying that the recovery of wages in Britain is below that of Greece. It's the worst in Europe as a result of the policies of the Tory government in Westminster. So I think there's a challenge for the whole trade union movement and all the unions in the public sector. And at the TUC, the Congress is coming up in September. Us and others will be arguing for a major campaign on pay, because clearly if we're all in the same boat, then there's a logic to try and fight in that together. And that puts us in the strongest position to try and push the government back. So that's one side of it. I think the other side is what we do in relation to the fire and rescue service. So assuming we'll try that strategy with the trade union movements in the fire and rescue service, we're trying to make the case for investment in our service, because the biggest cost in the fire and rescue service is people, and that's pay, pensions and so on. When they're making cuts, they slash jobs or they freeze pay, or in our case they're doing both. So we're making the case for investments rather than cuts in the service. And part of that is the work that we're doing with the National Joint Council, with our employers, where, as members will be aware, we've mapped out the work that firefighters do currently, but also the new areas of work, the new areas that have developed over the past decade or so, and areas that we might consider taking on. And some of those are more difficult than others, so there's a big debate around floods, for example, but also around emergency medical response, around planning for terrorism. So these are new challenges, new risks, and what we have started to sit down with the government. We met Theresa May a couple of months ago. We're meeting the Home Office, we're discussing with our employers, we're discussing with the ministers in the different parts of the UK, and the case that we're making is you've got a fantastic service. Firefighters have taken on new roles. They're also considering other additional roles. But if we're going to do that properly, one is we want the right resources, that's staffing levels, appliances, equipment, training, and actually part and parcel of that being about rewarding people professionally for doing such an outstanding job. So during this, we now have work streams, we have trials that people will be aware of on emergency medical response. Later this year, we have commissioned a university to do a report on that, which will be a report on these new areas of work that we hopefully can take to government, to politicians, MPs, mayors and so on, to say, look, this is the sort of service the fire service can provide, but it needs that investment. And I think we'll then be asking people to lobby their MPs, their councillors, their fire authorities and so on later this year and into the new year.
So that's the timescale for this. The report will be published later the year, and then we're going to ask members to become active in this. Yeah,
well, first of all, there'll be an interim report very soon. I think that's scheduled for August. By the end of November, early December, we expect to have a full report, and this is particularly focused on some of the wider trials that are underway in a lot of fire services, and that will be looking at the work that firefighters have done, whether it's delivered, what the implications, because there are clearly cost implications for fire services in doing some of that work, and then we would be asking people to engage in a sort of political campaigning to make the case for the service, for an end to the cuts, for investment in the service, and part and parcel for that for us is about improving pay.
Matt, thanks very much. All the information Matt referred to will be published on the union's website. That's www.fbu.org.uk. And all the pay rates for firefighters, including the continual professional development payments, are also on the union's website. For more immediate updates, you can follow us on Twitter, and that's at FBU National. And don't forget, we've also got a Facebook page. That's simply called the Fire Brigades Union. Until next time, thanks very much.